Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of The Voice of the Paper, the joint collaboration between the Podcasting Network at William & Mary and the Flat Hat News. I'm joined here today by
Maggie Moore, digital media editor.
And I will be your host, Ryan Walter. We're going to talk about a couple of the articles coming out in this week's issue of the Flat Hat. Maggie, why don't we start with the first one here?
Yeah. So this is the article on the front page of our paper this week. It's about the Amnesty International got a bill in SA that helps to take away some barriers that exist for refugee applicants to make it a little bit easier for them to gain admittance to the college. It unanimously passed the Student Assembly on April 2nd. So hopefully sometime soon we'll be seeing a lot more refugee members of our community.
Okay, and now moving on to our next story. Maggie, you want to read this one for us?
Yeah. So for the 2019 to 2020 school year, the housing contract cancellation fee, which students have to pay if they say that they're going to live on campus, sign the contract, and then decide that that's not what's going to happen, has quadrupled for that school year. A lot of students are criticizing Res Life for this decision because it is such a large jump in price. In short, the total fees have increased by 344.4%.
Yeah, I saw that. And so did you ever get any word back from the college or any word back from the administration regarding if that had to do to discourage people from dropping out of the housing contract if they could not get the housing that they wanted, since prominent places like Lemon and Hoe House or One Tribe Place are no longer available for housing next year? Or is that more of just suspicion and hearsay?
So Res Life director Maggie Evans actually gave us a comment saying that it was increased for a couple of reasons. The first was that they eliminated the housing deposit, so they needed that source of revenue. And then the other was that apparently more students were, quote, using the contract as a backup plan rather than a commitment and canceling.
Awesome. So why don't we move on to the third story here that we have from the actual paper. And that is breaking down the Student Assembly's financial procedures. And you and I both know that there was a lot of drama about this over the last couple of weeks. So I wonder if you could give us some more insights, specifically from Emma Ford's reporting, and if you can tell us more about it, that would be great.
Yeah, so Emma Ford is one of the Flat Hat's Student Assembly beat reporters. Every week during the Student Assembly meetings, she's in the room with all the Student Assembly senators and the president, covering whatever they discuss in their meeting that week. And on April 2nd, Student Assembly passed the Financial Regulatory Act, which reduces Media Council's reserve funding. So there was some controversy around this reduction. The bill began without the senator who proposed it consulting with Media Council, and then the numbers were kind of shifted around somewhere in the middle there. So the bill that was passed reduces the reserve funding from $75,000 to $55,000, and that goes into effect in 2020 to 2021. So Media Council members had to request that SA not lower the cap any further because some senators were considering an amendment that would keep it at $40,000 rather than $55,000. So a lot of members of different Media Council organizations showed up to the April 2nd meeting during public comment to ask that it not be lowered any more than $55,000. Full disclosure, I was one of the people there who requested that. And there was also some kind of confusion in the middle there as the idea was floated that the $20,000 difference in the reserve funding could be given towards multicultural organizations. But then part of this article that Emma Ford wrote discusses the budgetary process for Student Assembly, because it's not as straightforward as just taking the money out of the reserve funding and giving it to multicultural organizations. There's some more steps to it that make that not quite the truth about what could happen.
Right, and that seems, to continue our conversation, that seems pretty discouraging to me as a student who elected these people or participated in the voting process, that them not even understanding how the budgetary process works seems pretty discouraging for, the confidence in the students and their actual Senate. I note here where SA President Kelsey Vita, class of 20, reminded the Senate that allocating the $20,000 generated from the cuts to the Media Council's reserves cannot actually be directly allocated to the multicultural groups on campus. And so I wonder that if in the future that'll become more of an issue. But that's a time for another issue, I think.
Yeah. Just to clarify, at the time of this meeting, Brendan Boylan was still SA president, so Kelsey Vita was still the class of 2020's president. She was not in charge of all of Student Assembly. So this was one of the last meetings for a lot of the outgoing senators and presidents and vice presidents.
Gotcha.
So
thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, this meeting is not necessarily how Student Assembly will operate. So if you are feeling discouraged about how you voted in the election, I don't know that this is an indicator of how that vote played out.
Awesome. And we'll be right back with a couple more things here. Stick with us. And welcome back to the Voice of the Paper. Maggie, you had some things you want to talk about.
So as the digital media editor, I help the online editors in the online section produce videos roughly every week. And this week we finally put together an investigation into the anti-Semitic flyers that were found around campus on February 26th, I believe. There was an article in that week's issue about the flyers, so we brought in the reporter who wrote that article, Gavin Akeen, he's our sports editor, and also the online editors, and we kind of explained what happened with that initial situation, and then discussed previous incidents with discriminatory flyers on campus. There was one in 2017 that William and Mary Vox posted on their Facebook page where there were flyers found in Morton, basically talking about how the wage gap was a myth perpetuated by feminists, how affirmative action is government-mandated racism, I believe is what one of the flyers says. And then in 2016, shortly after the presidential election in the United States, there was some graffiti in a hall bathroom that said, "Go Trump," with a swastika instead of the T. So looking into incidents like that, reaching out to William and Mary Police and Ginger Ambler for comment about what the administration's response is and why, and just seeing how those incidents fit into things across the country.
Awesome. And then there was one more thing that you wanted to talk about?
Yes. So our news editors, Heather Baer and Leslie Davis, have put together a police database. Every week, the Flat Hat prints a police beat that includes 5 crimes from the past week. The police beat is moving online instead of in print, and will be housed under the data tab on flathatnews.com. It will feature an interactive data table and map that users can access to view and analyze crime trends on campus and in the greater Williamsburg area. So if you're interested in what kind of crimes happen in Williamsburg, where they occur, and what happens, you can now look at our website and see more about that.
Awesome. So make sure to check out that video that Maggie plugged, and if you're interested in the crime statistics of Williamsburg, you can find it online on the Flat Hats website. Thank you so much for listening to The Voice of the Paper. My name is Ryan Walter, and it's been great to have you.